I'm going to explain how I make games with JavaScript and HTML5 canvas. And here's just a little thing I made. What it is it's a space background, plane, and planet. And the way I set it up is like Scratch. If you've ever heard of Scratch, what I tried to do is I tried to set up my JavaScript to make it as much like Scratch as I could. And I'm going to show you how I did that. So if you are familiar with Scratch, you'll understand that it's sprite-based. I don't know if that's a thing, sprite-based, but anyways, you have objects called sprites that have properties. Like, the way I did it is sprites have x, y, width, height, source, and rot. So x, obviously, since x coordinate on the canvas, y is obvious, width is obvious, height is obvious. And then source is the URL for the location of its image, and rot is a number in radians of its rotation. So the way I did my sprite class, it's this function right here, if you can't see. I just set the variables. I set x, y, rot, width, height, and then for costume, this dot costume equals new image, and then this dot costume dot source equals source. I did that because on Canvas, as you probably already know, to draw an image, you need to make an image object. So then I make the draw method, which is this function. And what it first does is it saves. And if you don't know about save and restore, you should probably look that up. It's an important part of working with Canvas. And then I first translate to the center of where I want it to draw. So if I want to draw my sprite at its x and y coordinate, I would then draw it. I would first translate to the points that would be the center of where I would draw it to. And then we do a rotate to the amount of radians we want. Then we translate the offset of, as you can see here, we do minus this dot width over 2, whereas up here we do this dot x plus this dot width over 2. So this way we're just translating to this dot x and this dot y. Then we draw the image, this dot costume, which is the image object. 0 and 0, because when you translate to something, that point becomes 0, 0. And then of course we just do the width and the height, because that's how draw image works. And then we do restore. And like I said, if you don't know what save and restore do, you should just look that up. So that's draw. And then we're going to show how I do handling key presses, which a lot of people seem to have a lot of trouble with on Canvas. And what I do is I just do this. I have at the beginning on my init, I do document.add event listener key down function key events, which I'll show you later, and then on key up we do unkey event. Alright, also I declare keys, make the array keys, which is just an array. So then on key, what it does is it just sets keys, it sets that part of the array to true. So like if I press the right arrow, which I believe is key number 39, if you don't understand key codes, you should definitely look that up. So it sets keys 39 to true, and then when you press up it sets keys 39 to false, so that's pretty simple. Now where it becomes like Scratch is, in Scratch you control your sprites and everything by setting properties and calling methods, basically. So you have a loop. I just did set interval and then this function, which is your game loop, and then 30. So basically anything in Scratch you'd be putting inside of a forever block. If you're unfamiliar with Scratch, disregard that. Goes in here. And then anything you put on when green flag clicked, once again, if you're not familiar with Scratch, disregard that, just goes up here. Or it goes under init, yeah. Oh yeah, and of course I declare all my sprites up here. I've got BG, which is BG 1 through 4, which are just the space background, ship, and then Mars. Pretty obvious. And then I have the URLs, the images for their source, and I declare all their rotations to 0. So in my loop, first you gotta do clear rect, which erases the canvas. And then for Mars, I just set its x position to scroll x plus 200. Scroll x is a variable, it's a default set to 0, and scroll y 2. If you're familiar with Scratch, you'll understand what that is, and if you're not, you can probably still figure it out. Then we draw all the sprites. Now you do them from back to front. So if we go back to my game, you can see here that the plane goes on top of Mars. That's just because in the code I draw the ship after Mars. And then don't worry about all this is just controlling the background, and I have it set up so that the background scrolls infinitely. I'll show you that. Like you can scroll in any which direction and there'll always be background. It kind of took me a while to figure all that out because it's not really something you do in Scratch. There is like a coordinate system though, so you will eventually get back to Mars. It's pretty cool. One thing I haven't been able to figure out yet is this little white dot that appears when you spaz out. I think it's just lag time between the drawing thing, which is, you know, one thing that if you're working in Canvas, you're probably going to want to overcome, but I'm just too lazy. So, you know, if key is 38, which is looks to me like the up arrow, we increase scroll Y, and then we move the background images. And then right here is the down arrow. We do the same thing. Oh yeah, and also I changed shift.rot. As you can see, 0 is up, pi is down. You should understand radians. Radians is pretty simple. It's just the ratio from degrees to radians is 360 is to 360 as 2 pi is to 2 pi. Like, you know, 180 degrees in radians is pi. So we want this to be pointed down, so we just set it to pi. And then here we do the same thing. We want it facing left. We do 3/2 pi, and it's pretty simple from there. And that's how I make Canvas games.